So just to let you know, we are recording now. So we'll be recording right from the start. We're expecting a few more people, so thanks for coming early and on time. But we'll see who else pops along.
Good to see you there, PJ. As soon as I said that, you disappeared. Oh, there you are. Yeah. Good.
How do you do that little heart thing?
Oh, someone's saying hello from New York as well. There must be, is it reactions? If you look on more.
Yes.
Yep. Hover your mouse. There are lots of different reactions, and you can do claps and all sorts of stuff.
Oh, wow, that sounds fancy. Fancy stuff. I'll not be doing any fancy stuff today, I don't think.
Oh, yeah.
You never know. Once you try it, you get hooked.
Whoa!
There you go.
And I thought I was doing well,
Hello,
just turning the thing on and making my computer work.
Wow, Pennsylvania. Come on. All right. Hello, Elaine. How are you?
Good, really good. Happy that you're here, so I'm great today.
Oh, bless you, babe.
Great to see you.
Good to see you. Well, where are you, actually? You're up here. There you go. Hey, babe.
And East Lothian is getting a shout out. I'm in East Lothian as well, so centre of the universe, Philippa.
Absolutely, and I'm just a couple of miles along the road from you, Daphne. So
Whoa.
yeah, it's nice. We've got these little constellations. Oh, and Newport-on-Tay, I could wave to if I was taller.
Okay, well, it's 2 minutes past. I think we should get a start today. So there'll probably be some people joining us, and then probably about a few minutes in, they'll actually stop letting new folk in. So just to remind you, are being recorded. Really nice to welcome you to Well Versed. My name is Daphne Loads, and I'm one of the lead readers for Open Book. And Well Versed, as you'll know, is a collaboration between Open Book and Stanza. And it's a way of giving people a chance to read, to take a deep dive into a poet's work, then to actually meet the poet themselves, and get a chance to ask some questions and talk to them. And then the final session in the trio is where people write in response to that poet's work. So I think it's a really, really great setup. But today I am delighted and excited to introduce Joelle Taylor. Hooray!
Hello.
It's really miserable in East Lothian today. I don't know what it's like in Pennsylvania and all these other places where you are, but it doesn't matter because I think Joelle might just kind of brighten things up a bit. She's well known for that. So a quick just kind of rundown. So Joelle has authored 4 poetry collections, including Canto and Other Stories that won the 2021 T.S. Eliot Prize and the 2022 Polari Prize. She's performed all over the world, and her spoken word performances are stunning. I don't know if you've had the chance to see her, but go online anyway, and it's just brilliant. She's acted in Derek Jarman's Blue, is also a playwright herself. Joelle is known for supporting young performance artists. She notably founded Slambassadors UK. She's judged numerous competitions, won numerous competitions. She's famous for shining a light on the experiences of butch lesbians, and also for drawing fresh attention to performance poetry. Perhaps people who are used to page poetry have come into the world of performance poetry because of Joelle. So welcome, Joelle. Really delighted to have you here. What I'm going to do is ask Joelle to read some poetry. She selected some of her poems for us. Then I'm lucky because I've got a chance to ask her some questions, and I've got some things that I'm just dying to ask. But while I'm doing that, I'd like you folk to think of, what do you want to ask? What do you want to say? I said, is there anything we have to stay clear of? And Joelle said, no, it's fine. She'll let us know if we've gone over any boundaries, she said. So if you'd like to pop any questions you've got into the chat as we go, and then I'll make sure that you get a chance to have your questions answered. But can I first of all hand over to you, Joelle, and ask you if you wouldn't mind reading some of your work, please.
I'd absolutely love to. Thanks so much for inviting me to do this. And it's the whole outline of the project, the fact that you pay close attention to an author's work, then meet them and then respond to the work. That's really compelling. I don't think I've heard of any series of workshops that do that. So I'm absolutely honoured to be asked to come and be one of those poets. So what a surprise. I'm going to read from C+nto and Othered Poems. And what's really nice for me is I don't actually have to do the introduction bit where I explain the world of the book. What we're going to do is essentially we're going to stay in the Maryville section, the O Maryville section. And as you recall, Maryville is a dyke dive bar in a snow globe. So I'm going to read, first of all, scene 1. I tried to invent a kind of form of poetry, or start to be a little bit more experimental with what I thought of as form. And so I created these kind of poems that are called loosely stage directions, partly because they're a kind of a way of propelling the narrative forward, a way of kind of creating this sort of poetic snapshot, a photograph of a moment. And when you put all the 12 stage directions together, they kind of make a bit of an album, and you can follow the story of the Maryville. But the other reason is because, like many lesbians in particular, but marginalized people, I think in general, I'm just so used to being narrated. I'm used to other people talking about me, and this idea of the gaze, the male gaze in particular. So that's why I kind of invented this quite theatrical version of a poem. Scene 1. Exterior, night, a main road in London, LX1. Street lamps watch a woman pass and text each other, FX1. The sound of a door opening into a chest cavity. A lone woman walks briskly, head down, holding invisible bouquets. Ahead of her is a hunched building with its hands in its pockets, bracketed by gossiping fairy lights. LX2. A neon sign flashes, its pink dilate. Maryville, the sign says. The woman pushes open the door and enters her own body. At the bar, she orders a drink, and when it arrives, it is her breath. Music is playing. It's the sound of someone being listened to. She notices that she's sitting at every table. So when the woman asks her to dance, the whole of the past stands up to dance with her. Her classmates, her teachers, the manager of the shop she worked in over Christmas, the newspaper proprietor, the street she grew up on, an adjacent town, her parents and grandparents, the kid who waited for her after school. The song ends. The world opens. Venus rises. Thank you. So, if you can imagine what it was like coming from an environment where you felt ugly and where you were literally, it was a very exiled sort of, not to be too, I'm quite gay, but not to be too dramatic. There were choices we had to make, you know, back in the late 70s and 80s between our family and our family. I think it's what Armistead Maupin calls biological family and logical family. So this is called Psalm. During that time as well, there was a great deal, a lot of the homophobia, a lot of the very oppressive stuff happening to lesbians, both as same-sex attracted and as women, was coming from the church, and particularly Catholic Church. So I use a lot of ecclesiastical language, I guess, in it. So this is called a Psalm. Oh, Maryville, song of loose shirt, you button down boy, you thick rod of irony. Oh, Maryville, you sawn off miniskirt, you tights, torn into choir. Oh, Maryville, oh, swagger, oh, keychain and denim. I am plural. Oh, Maryville, we dress as our greatest fears, we dress as ourselves. Oh, Maryville, the etymology of dyke, so many holes to fill. I knew your mother, saw them lower her body into her body, saw how she became cenotaph, the neighborhood children left flowers at. Oh, Maryville, I remember your sister, how antelope she was, how she froze when she heard the first roar, how she fell into the O of the roar. Oh, my Maryville, the antelopes are eating the antelopes. Oh, Maryville, forgive us their trespasses. Let us walk alone at night, and let the night not follow us. Let us drink too much and awaken in each other's mouths. Let us be ugly. Let us unwashed. Let us language. Let us pass the half-smoked cigarette. Let us fatten. Let us leave our faces on the back seats of night buses. Let someone take a photograph not of us, but because of us. Let our limbs grow wild, our hair retreat, our hormonal seize. Let our breasts, let them. Let us inherit each other's teeth. Keep us alive this death. Keep us from prayer, deliver us from ego, for thine are the body, the birthing and the burning forever and ever. Are you a man? Thank you. And Elaine, who's probably seen me do this a couple of times, no, I always say this whenever I've done Psalm, which is after touring it, I realised the last line should have been gay men, but there we are. There's always something else to write. So I'm going to introduce you to the four butchers, and as you know, they were my friends. So the first one is called Valentine, who was a black butcher, we call it a stud. And she wore lots of leather and was extremely handsome, and also was a dab hand at squatting, so breaking into buildings. Really weirdly, I had an experience where I did this whole thing talking about squatting, and people didn't realize anymore that squatting means breaking into an unoccupied house and, you know, a political act. They thought Valentine just went around kind of squatting down all the time. Anyway, Valentine, born, right body, wrong day. Valentine flicks her lighter in the corner of the club, and white women flutter. Tonight, she has dressed as the inside of a mouth, a hand-sewn suit excised from a cured night sky. Black leather has its own skincare routine. It listens to its mother. I've heard it said that some girls give birth to themselves on the backs of motorbikes. Invent the wind, let the road uncurl from between their thighs, the Lemniscate motorway, something British and unbidden. I know why we're drawn to the corners. It's where the road cannot reach us. Every part of a woman is a weapon if you know how to hold her, Valentine says. The corner flicks a morse, and in the dark, white hearts beat like moths against a headlight. Thank you. I love performing on Zoom because you end these like poems to absolute rapturous silence. It's the sound of your career slowly sinking beneath the ground. Right, this is Angel. And Angel was the youngest among us and was heavily traumatized and as a consequence was quite violent herself and heavily involved in drugs and etc. etc. And it's pretty much a common story for butch women. So, oh, by the way, whenever I say boy, I mean BOI, which means a young butch. Angel. When Angel looks in the mirror, it looks away first. Star fist, open jaw, how the shine becomes you, clean friend, taller than yesterday's spine, and unraveling plot you. Odd insistence. My king of the blue tattoo, eyebrow pinned, eyebrow, oh, excuse me. Eyebrow pinned Prince Butterfly. When you walked in the room, it became you. How you brought the silence in with you. How you brought the night to its knees. Back there, where the quiet ones go. And now, the night won't stop texting. How many times have we walked home, you and I, only to find home walking softly behind us? I've seen you leap over language to push a man back inside himself, throw pint glasses like seeds, speak to every woman as if she were your mother. I have seen your fists sob. At the center of every boy is a bare room, and inside a swinging light bulb, a wire-thin girl dances, stays with you, even when you look away. Angels don't fall from heaven. They leave at closing time. Unscrew their fucks in the backs of black cabs, abandon their bodies beneath a girl, beneath a duvet, beneath the wet, dilated night, on fire. So that's Angel. I also wanted to include in this, so the story of c.nto is, of course, about these four butchers who navigate the night in the old Maryville bar. And it's kind of magical space. It's inside a snow globe. So this next poem I wanted to bring in because it's outside the Maryville bar. It's in a bar called Heaven. So when I'm talking about heaven in the earlier poems, I'm talking about a nightclub. And it was in this nightclub that I met my girlfriend and her brother, Richard. And cut a long story short, he developed HIV and then died of AIDS. And at his funeral, he left me this, which is a little angel inside a snow globe. And that's the origin of the book c.nto and why everything's in different vitrines and little glass cases. And this poem relates to a night out we were dancing when I was looking round and noticing people who weren't there. But, you know, it's like watching a film and all the extras just start kind of disappearing one by one and it gets closer and closer and closer. And that was my experience of AIDS in early 90s London. This is called Heaven. Vinegar, this moment of belief club in a fish tank. Riot Genesis. The boy touches her fingertip to a light beam and God winks a wet eye. Maybe the light beam is the escalator to the afterlife or after party or part of her body she checked in the cloakroom, but tonight all of the dead will dance with her. All of the dead are well dressed this evening, they solemn the escalator descend to the dance. Tequila Mockingbird releases her wig back into the wild. The core of carrion burrs blows a kiss that exhales. the core of bad lipstick, numb beaks scattering round white seeds from which Gautier sailors grow, haloed in certainty, their muscles, the shaven heads of women marching back into their bones, a clearing at the center of them. The butches peel off their shirts, and underneath they are children. Salt this boy, how she reaches toward the infinite, this moment between, how she sees the ghosts of those still alive, how she conjures life from life, how the lighthouse winks at the storm. Thank you. I think I messed up the middle bit, but buy the book and do it correctly. The Lighthouse, and why it's in capitals, was the gay hospice in London where many of our brothers saw out their final days and were cared for by these incredible gay men and dykes. This is another one of the 6 butches. This is the butch that I have to play when I... It's not like it's like a crime if I don't play it. I'm not actually being made to do it. But this is a character I play in the stage version of c.nto. Jack Catch, who's a bit of a bewildered old boy. Kind of, as I was writing them, I was thinking of them as a sort of 1950s kind of book. So it's called Jack Catch Teaches at the Old School. Jack Catch, in her hound's tooth suit, oxblood brogues, knitted tie, sharpens the air she walks through. The room sucks its stomach in, tries not to look. She can undo a bar with one hand, old school, preserved in the amber of lager. Maryville is aspic, fixing all the silverbacks at 7:32 p.m. 1995. Hair you could picnic on, bring the family. The music's been remembering its childhood, scratching its hazy outline for hours when Soho and her girls, the side streets slung around their necks as feather boas, slide in on silk. Pearls, low-hanging fruit, each wearing her mother pinned to her breast, and the old boys stop talking, each afraid of her own face that it might eat her. But Jack Catch stands, pulls a chair out of her sleeve, tips the barman, taps a cigarette to stand out from the others, and when Soho asks for a light, she is speaking of forgiveness. And when Jack opens her Zippo, she's showing how easy it is to burn, how aspic dissolves. And now the silverbacks look towards saloon doors that never open. Young things, Eddie and Glamour, are paintings of themselves. And old Jack Catch straightens the crease in her houndstooth, says, Jesus. Are all women female impersonators? Says, every sin is running back inside. There are new words for words. And surveying the club mutters, I remember when all of this was a loose stone in a wall. Thank you. Oh, that's the end. Brilliant. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
There you are.
That was a lot. Just, yeah, a lot. And brilliant.
That's what the kids say. Allow it. It's a lot.
So, I've got my best femme gear on. I thought I would kind of do
Fabulous.
that. I've got some questions, some things that I'm really curious about, Joelle, that I'd like to ask. But I'm really encouraging other folk here. Just put up your questions in the chat, please. I'd love to know what you want to ask. Do you know, my question is about that asterisk, you know, in the title of your question. I don't know. I mean, is it winking at me? Is it a bright star? Is it a sign of erasure and censorship? Is it something removed?
Yes.
It's
All
the,
of these things. So it's
it's the you
ecclesiastical, it's the crosshair on a sniper gun, it's a wink, and it's the plus sign from LGBT.
okay.
But the true story, which I think a few people might know, so the name Kanto was a joke between me and Anthony Naxaguru, who I run Outspoken Live with, and I was an editor on Outspoken Press. And we're very, very good friends. And I'd written a set of poems for a book I published with him called Songs My Enemy Taught Me. And he went, "Oh, you've written cantos." And I said, "Nah, they're cantos, bruv." Like that as a joke. And then we both rolled around howling. And then I was commissioned by Apples and Snakes to write the longer poem that begins the book. And it was nicknamed Canto. We just called it Canto. And then Saki Books were like, they found it hilarious. And they were like, "Yes, I want it." And I got absolute cold feet. I was like, no one will put it in. It won't sell. It won't go in any bookshops. No one will be able to say the name. So it won't get on the radio. And I talked to Anthony. He was like, "Yeah, that's crass. Oh my God, I would joke. Are you joking?" And Saki were just so clear that it had to be that. And they talked to their American branch, and everyone's, "No, cunt, cunt, cunt." So, so the compromise was like, okay, I want the U taking out. And I was completely wrong. People just love swearing. Who knew? Who knew? But that's the true story. And then it was even more. I was so paranoid because when you're working class, it's so easy to bring us down. You know, it's so very easy for one little slip like that to be done. That's it. So I had this genius moment, and I Googled the word, and it means to recount personal history in a Sicilian dialect, a dead language. So I was like, yes, that will do. But yeah, I mean, my new book, actually, we were going to call Con 2, but we thought like perhaps it was pushing it a little bit, but it's coming out. There we go. That's the proof.
Brilliant. Okay, thank you. Thank you. One of the things that I like, I don't know about other folk here, but one of the things that I love is the kind of almost surreal kind of quality of your writing, you know, like kind of bizarre juxtapositions, that kind of dreamlike logic, the playfulness that you have with images. And I was wondering, is surrealism, you know, is that a thing that matters for you? Do you kind of associate with other surrealist poets or visual artists? I'd just like to know your take on that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm very attracted to the surreal, to surreal writers in general. But I've noticed, having kind of edited a lot of women's collections in particular, that it's something women do in a really interesting way. And I call it social surrealism, rather than, because it's kind of really connected to the body. It's really connected. It's really connected to the way that the body is placed within the world. You know, so for example, an earlier play of mine, when I was trying to talk about bulimia in one of the, it was a play, so I was trying to talk about it, but rather than just do the kind of realistic thing, which is you vomiting in the toilet, it starts like that, but then it's like you extend the metaphor until it snaps in your face. And so she ended up inside. This is pre-train spotting, by the way, but she ended up inside the toilet, you know, and so you kind of really stretch things. But it's also a key component of queer language and queer conversation. This kind of, I think of it as the lie, you know, saying the opposite to what you mean, which comes from camp. It comes from the need to kind of hide ourselves as a community. So there's something about that as well. But I kind of think of myself as certainly with the new book, like almost like a cinematographer. So but you can do impossible things in poems, more than you can. I think it would really irritate people in long form, you know, thinking the world keeps snapping into a different world. But it's totally possible, you know, to build within single poems. And yeah, I do relate to the surrealists.
Yeah.
As long as I understand what's going on. If I don't, then that's just posh. Oh.
Fair enough. Thanks. We've got a question coming in from Susanna. Susanna's saying it's very moving to hear how the vitrines came about. In my own work, I'm interested in how poetic form can both express and contain trauma.
Mm.
And she asks, how much do you think you use the vitrines to protect yourself as much as preserve the stories they contain?
Wow. Well, I think probably Susanna, on a kind of subconscious level, that's very accurate, isn't it? How we're able to take, and anybody who's experienced any kind of trauma, particularly I think sexual abuse, learns to compartmentalize. You learn to have different lives at the same time. You know, so in a sense, the vitrines are all in conversation with each other, but also all unaware of each other. It's a strange kind of, like you're saying, a juxtaposition. I think probably they are a really protective device, but they're also frames. What I like, you know, Daphne, is when you say one thing, but it can mean four things. And whatever so you can really flip between it, because perhaps in parallel realities, they're all are the correct answer. You know, everything is kind of connected. It was also, on another level, a device, a literary device. How do I tell lots of different stories and get across what's happening, the loss of culture and the loss of community and that isolation that we have, which is, you know, vitrines from each other. This thing here is a vitrine. It's a little vitrine. Look at your tiny little faces in glass cabinets right now. Do you know what I mean? So there's something to do with that, I think, as well.
Thank you. We've got a question from Ramona. So I think she's working for your press office here, because she says, I'm intrigued to hear that the next book is nearly ready. Can you tell us a bit about it? Please
Yes,
do.
I can. So these are the proofs, and they've been out for hey, Ramon. They've been out for a little bit. You can't see that, probably it's reversed, but it says Maryville, and it's got my name. And like I said, it was kind of come to. The cover's going to look like this, a bit like that. Don't know if you can see it. My screen seems a bit out. Anyway, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And it's out on November 9th, and I'm launching it in Queen Elizabeth Hall. And following in a piece that's going to be directed by Neil Bartlett, who I'm meeting right after this. He's an incredible collaborator, thinker, imagist director. I love him. With live VJing from 50 years of lesbian culture by Sweat Mother and a whole bunch of other things. So basically, it's a book of ghosts. This is it's a ghost story, but it begins with my friends, the four friends. And I resurrect them and put them into 16-year-old bodies in 1957, where they all meet eventually at the Maryville bar, and they remain there for 50 years, while around them, lesbian and gay culture, you know, dilates and expands. Women's movement comes to power. The Black Panthers come to Brixton, the Brixton riots, Greenham Common, squat culture. And with the focus being a mainly kind of lesbian focus, and it ends in 2007. But what makes it kind of different is it's using the language of film. So instead of using the language of theatre, which is kind of what c.nto did, in this one we have poems that are called mise en scène. So they are mise en scène, release day, soundtrack, Walking After Midnight, Patsy Cline. So you'll be able to play that in the book. Exterior, HMP Martyrs Hill. The prison gates open and a grinning Ruby is released back into the wild. And then it dissolves into poetry. So it's in 3 sections. Season 1 is called A Silence Filled with Dancing. And that's from 1957 to 1967. And then episode 2, season 1 is Rebels with a Clause. And that's 1977 to 87. And then finally, Dust King's Tough Kids, which is episode 3, 97 to 2007. So it covers a lot of my personal experience and life history, but I spent a lot of time at the archives, you know, and it's already been made into a beat sheet to see if they can get funding to make it into a film, which is sick. I'm really excited about it, and it feels so sick as well. You
Sick,
know, yeah,
sick
yeah,
with what? Anxiety or
absolute anxiety.
yeah?
Absolute anxiety. The real problem with having a popular book is that nothing you write ever again is any good. so I'm going to be trapped saying the same poem for the rest of my life, rocking. My teeth slowly fall out one by one left, rattling like a cat flap.
Well, thank you for that sneak preview. That was a treat. Thank you. So we've got a question from Kylie. I absolutely love watching you perform your poetry. Me too. And I love hearing you speak in general. Thank you for today. Do you have any advice for developing my own poetry? I'd like to write more and I'd like to write better, but I'm not sure where to start.
Yes, very difficult question. But essentially, what you do is you get up and write, and you write with the understanding that your pen is a camera. Sorry, that poetry is cinema, and your pen is a camera. That's what it is. So, you've heard it 1,000 times. Show, don't tell. That's all that means. So stick with. What I want you to do is find a poem. I want you to find a sonnet, but a contemporary sonnet, maybe by somebody like Anthony Joseph or Terence Hayes, and respond to it. So find something that really, really impacts you and respond to it, remembering poetry cinema, your pen's a camera. And if you can, put it in 14 lines. Because all of that helps us to kind of refine. That's the point of us learning these forms. Spoken word is a form, And I don't think of myself as a performance poet anymore or a spoken word artist. I think of myself as it's embodied poetry. It's just I use my body as a language.
Brilliant, thank you. Great advice for us there. Elena's saying, when this film comes out, who would you want to play you, Joelle? You.
No, Jodie Comer, come on. It'd be amazing. That would be infinitely watchable.
Do you get a say in who it will be?
Hey?
Do you get a say in who it will be?
Absolutely none at all. Okay. Even doing the stage, the theatre, because basically once you sell the rights to a book and then you start adapting it for whatever new media it is, other people come in and it's the strangest feeling because it's a memoir. But even if it wasn't, you have a very firm idea about what's happening. And it turns out people think something completely different's happening. So you sit there being like, and you have to do this negotiation, which is like, does it matter? Does it matter that they've really misunderstood what that means? Because they're making something's grown out of it, So basically, you're a writer. It's not like poetry where we do fucking everything and we're even in the audience. Like literally do a poem on stage, get off and clap ourselves, go back up. We're literally playing. We have this incredibly unique, empowered art form where it's very it's whilst we're collectivity is I think a central part of us, we have that kind of the central dynamo is yourself.
Yeah. Okay. Can I ask you a kind of a detailed question again about the language? So in the poems that you chose for us today, I was struck by, because I was reading them before you read them, a kind of repeated idea. So we were talking about this kind of surreal quality, but there's something unsettling and very enticing for me about this image. It's a woman enters her own body. Some girls give birth to themselves. Young things are paintings of themselves. We dress as ourselves. Your mother saw them lower her body into her body. Women marching back into the... I don't know, do you call it reflexive? I don't know if there's a fancy word for it, but this idea of this kind of the body going back on itself. What's that all about?
I think it's an owning. It's a re-owning almost, like you said, that marching back into your bones, a sense of return. And so it can be, it's a wholly positive thing. It's wholly positive, in some senses. Yeah, that's what I think of it as, I think.
Re-owning.
Because if you, I mean, Conto, which is mostly described as a book about butch women, it's about dykes, is actually a book about sexual abuse. That's how it begins. And it's about my friends, so it's very real, and it is, of course, about butch women. And I'm certainly not saying that you have to be sexually abused to be butch, but this was one of my personal defense, one of my armors, one of my defense mechanisms. That really helped me was finding other women like myself and tracing what had happened to body. And the book's become, I think, an important book on some level to trans communities. There are often a lot of trans men and non-binary people in the audience because they have a similar journey of trying to find the body and get back in it. It's as though you've been, that's what I mean about re-owning. It's as though you've been colonized and now we're coming back. Now we're, digging our keys up out of the soil and coming back home.
Yeah, I get that. Thank you. Another detail that kind of struck me, and that was those 4 words. Are you a man? Is this misidentifying or accusing or whatever it is? Is that?
Well, you see, it's a really, it's a historically pertinent comment. So it fits basically with the time in the 80s and prior to that if you looked like me, or if you were an independent woman, a question that was always asked of us is, are you a man? And there's this lack of belief that any woman, actual woman with makeup, and frocks on, all the lot, could possibly do these things. So it's really interesting how this historical document, because you could read it in context today and think about it in terms of, transness to an extent, I guess. But our fight, and I was talking about this is Charlie Josephine, who is co-adapting Conto for the stage. And he, we had this conversation. So he's in his early 30s and I'm in my early 50s. And we were trying to explain, our generation's fight was to be seen as women. And Charlie's fight is to be seen as a man now. Do you know what I mean? So they're not fighting against each other. They are different fights from, I guess, different, what do you call it, focuses of each era. I think it's interesting. I think it's really interesting how that dynamic has produced us, really.
Thank you. Another question from Susanna. To follow up on that excellent question about reflexivity in women's bodies. When you spoke at the Poetry School MA Summer School this July, hello, by the way, she says, you talked about how the removal of community equates to the removal of witness. Is this reflexivity a way of returning the body to its own community? And can the body grow outwards again once it has turned inwards? Maybe the first is necessary for the latter. Woo! This is deep stuff.
That is deep, man. Well, yes, all of that.
Yeah.
Could you repeat the beginning? Because my menopause kicked in right then.
You talked about how the removal of community.
Yes. It's the removal of witness.
Witness.
Oh yeah, again, Susanna, you've done it. You've found a parallel, between me as a writer and the escape from trauma. And I find that very interesting. Yes, it's a political question I'm asking as well, because when what do I say in that lecture that ghosts have to have witnesses? You can't have a ghost without a witness to it, otherwise we don't know it's there, whatever. So I think that's why community is so important. So we witness what's happened to each other and we witness how we respond, but it also gives us a sense of, that shared drive and the shared rebellion, I guess, in some senses, not just in a political way, but in a very personal way. Remember, we used to shout during that time, the personal is political. That was a major feminist slogan, that everything we wrote is both big politics and tiny, tiny politics, the politics of a blood cell, you know, and that's the expansiveness and the intimacy working in the same moment. I'm trying to think of it in like that. Yeah. And the second part of the question, Daphne, what was?
Yeah. Is this reflexivity a way of returning the body to its own community? And can the body grow outwards again once it is turned inwards? And she says in brackets, maybe the first is necessary for the latter.
I do think the first is necessary for the latter. And I see it as one action almost, you know. You have to return. It's like there's a dark room and you're scared to go in, but you're an adult now and you've got a little iPhone with a little torch on. And all you're going to do is run into that room, grab a few things and run back out again and shut it. And it's all going to be good. It's going to be fine. We're going to dust them off and win a big prize. Thank you. You know, the relationship of trauma and creativity, I think most of us, whatever our gender is, and whatever our experience, classes, whatever our race, all of us have that same experience, that tension between trauma and creativity. And it's very interesting to me that you're doing work that looks at the form of trauma rather than simply the content, which is what we're used to thinking about. Sick. Thank
you. So, anyone been sitting there thinking, oh, I'd like to ask a question, but perhaps my question is not as important as Susanna's, or, you know, just, is there anything on your mind that you'd really like to ask and you're thinking, no, it doesn't have to be a deep question. You heard my questions weren't very deep. They were just,
oh, great.
They did. Anyone got anything on their mind?
It literally just came to stare at me, Daphne.
Well, while you're thinking, I have got a question which I find odd, is that I've heard lots of kind of descriptions of your work and people who love it and all of that. But people don't seem to say that it's sexy. Is it just me? You know, all this dilating and winking and all of this is going on. Thinking, woo, this is sexy stuff. Is it just me, or do other people comment on that?
Do you know, the first person, it was an interview online with an American radio station, these lesbians, and they were like, God, it's so sexy. And I was so shocked because I thought I was doing a very serious piece of work. But now when I'm reading it, I'm like, oh, I can see that Valentine's a bit sexy. And also, once I saw the very first stage version, a 40-minute version of it, yes, Cora's sexy is serious, forgive me. Yeah. Correct. Yeah, correct. So I hadn't really picked up on it.
But it's not just me, that's okay. Elaine is asking, are you doing any workshops or do you have any courses coming up? Yeah, I think a few people would be interested.
I'm doing Memoir online course starting October, I think 7th, Memoir. So you'll be able to find that. And I'm doing, the course title is, I think it's Poetry with Purpose. It's practical. So obviously we do some creative writing, but I'm more interested in these particular 4 workshops in how to propel each participant forward. So how they write workshop plans, who they contact, how do you get funding, all of which I'll have to Google obviously before I go up. But it's a more practical one, like how now we invest in ourselves, in our craft, but we also have to invest in the more the logistical side, the bit that leads to eating, you know, and paying your rent, that sort of thing. How you apply poetry is really fascinating to me.
Yeah. So thank you. So that's answer to that. Susanna, I was just going to say that we've been conditioned to think otherwise by capitalism commodifying sex, especially in relation to women's and queer sexuality, which it is terrified of, exclamation mark. Okay. Yeah.
I mean, this is why I've tried to, C+nto is all about, it's all about the camera lens. It's about the male gaze. And it's about the only kind of substrata of society during this period in time that manages to escape that gaze if it chooses. Not always, but me and my friends did. we realized at one point we didn't know anyone that was male at all straight. We were like, oh fuck, we're literally lesbian separatists, and I just didn't mean it. I didn't mean it. Just don't know anyone. You know, but there was a very interesting political possibility within that. You know, I'm doing a thing for Poetry Library about, they asked me to write a poem in Polari and talk about Polari. And I was like, I can't do that because it's not my language. That's a gay male language. Talk to Toby Campion. But I can talk to you about lesbian language of silences. I can talk to you about Nushu, women's language, and how lesbian language has evolved over, you know, historical time. How old am I? Over like has evolved over the centuries, that sort of thing. Because we are really a language of silences, you know, symbols. It's a very symbolic language. Saying by not saying. It's basically a whole bunch of bloody poets. It's exhausting being gay, queer.
It was I was reading something else that said your work is very meaty, and I wasn't kind of sure what they meant by that, but that seems to be chiming in with a few of the things that you're saying. So it's meaty in the sense of being physical, and meaty in the sense of being political, and about.
And you know, and there's a denseness to it as well, I think.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of, I haven't quite mastered sorry to use a gendered word, but I haven't quite, I don't have command of the page yet. You know, I'm still looking at it and playing with it. And with Maryville, I wanted to leave loads and loads of air and gap around things, and it's absolutely rammed. No matter what I do, I just a massive overwriter. And it's thick already. If it gave it the air, it would probably be like this. This is like Joelle's poetry collection, normal size, 7 poems in there. So yeah, I think possibly it refers to that sort of denseness, but I like your version a little bit better. And also, actually, there's something that we can query about it, because in very first workshops I did in London that I attended as a sort of young 22-year-old, one of the things that was said to me was that I wrote like a man. And I was really surprised. And I'm still very good friends with an author I met there, Sue Fruman. And she was like, oh, what they mean is things happen in your stories. You make the women do things. So it's not this kind of, this absolute interiority. You know, I like, there's absolutely no interior to any of my characters, running off and doing things. But the idea that women couldn't be active in that manner, you know, couldn't, you know, is something I really want to challenge. And maybe that's a part of it as well. It's action-packed. Which then brings us to class, you know, what is it we're looking for in poetry? Is it possible that poetry could be genre? Is it possible it could be thrilling in some way, a bit of a page turner? You know, I'm very lucky to have read an advanced copy of Wayne Holloway Smith's next collection, Rabbit Box. It's incredible. It's absolutely incredible. But he's part now, and myself, of a whole kind of little school of poets who never talk to each other about this, by the way. But we've all just recently written books that are basically stories told in poetry. So you have a really clear narrative line, and they're very image-based as well. So they're using a lot of ideas of cinema in them. So it's a bit of a zeitgeist, I guess, going on. Because I saw Wayne Holloway Smith last night, and we're both just like, what? Your book too? How? How is this? How are we all starting to think about poetry in these ways? So I'd be fascinated to hear if any of the people watching are finding their work leaning toward the narrative.
Okay, question in from Kylie, who's interested in the connections between trans masculinity, hope I'm pronounced that right, trauma and creativity. How are you able to be so open and not compartmentalise and survive and thrive? How are you able to exorcise and continue?
Wow. I mean, to begin the story, I was trying to explain to people like a couple of nights ago in Latvia, like it's not an identity, Butch, to me. I know it is now, but it wasn't. I just was literally born like this. You know, born Butch, born backward. So there was never any coming out for me. And I think lots of people have, obviously, most of us have a very different experience, but I never had to come out as anything because it was really fucking obvious. You know, I was like the equivalent of a drag queen. So everybody knew in school by the age of 11. In fact, by the age of 10, pretty much everybody worked it out. I kept going behind the bike sheds with Mandy. So they, you know, it was a bit of a giveaway. But, you know, so there's that aspect. So there's always been myself. And then I get to founding Slambassadors, the National Youth Slam Championships. So I'm focusing on young people from very difficult backgrounds, very marginalized spaces, places with no platforms or, you know, ability to kind of really develop their artwork. And it's for 12 to 18-year-olds. And I just really felt that I shouldn't bring my whole self to work. And so for 18 years, I didn't. Now I do. But I very, very consciously, in fact, a friend of mine, Tom, just shared a photo. I wish I could share it. A photo of me in school from about 15 years ago. And I'm jumping up and down in the classroom and all these kids are jumping up and down as well. And they're like 14-year-olds. So God knows how I got them all to do that. I probably was like promising them all kinds of stuff. And my hair was blonde. And I'm just wearing jeans and a tight kind of shirt. And I just showed it my girlfriend and I said, I thought that I was completely undercover. And she was like, you couldn't look more lesbian if you tried. Like, only a butch would think that if you bleach your hair, no one can see you. So I pretended to be a punk. So that was, you know, you have to survive. You have to use, the aim of the game is to survive. Whatever it takes, as long as you have your central ethic. You know, and that means you're going to have to do a lot of things that you're really unhappy with. With me, it really helped develop a sense of humor. And if you look at a lot of working class queers, the sense of humor is what we go in the room with. We send our smiles in first. You know, they're the first men in the battle to go in because you're constantly deflecting and trying to make people your friends, you know, particularly men. Trying to diffuse and diffract. So that's a huge part of it. I can't remember all the rest of your question, but it was really well written. Oh, I'll just look at the chat. Now I remember.
How are you able to exorcise?
Exercise.
That's interesting.
I think it's a constant process at the moment. Like with Maryville, what's happening is, yeah, I'm haunting my ghosts, and I'm telling part of the same story for the third time. So it should be well and truly exercised. But what is left is a taste for world building. And it depends on how well Maryville goes, not necessarily within our poetry community, but within the wider queer world. Because those are the people that showed up night after night after night and made me, you know, pack out venues and make new connections and friendships. And just the love when you walk into a room. I'm sure those of you who are queer here, I can see some absolute queers with cats, of course, in front of me. There is a very big difference between being a very warm poetry audience and walking into a room of queers and saying exactly the same thing. There is a moment of recognition where the poem is continuing to be created. So it's a living thing between you. And I think that's really interesting. Whether you ever do really exercise is debatable. You know, there's that thing that we all, I can't remember who said it, but that we all write about the same three things our whole lives. And I think it's probably true. And when the menopause is over, I'll remember what they are, but, you know. Mainly menopause. Well, I think there is true, we are preoccupied. But what do you do with your trauma once you've written it out in content, and then you've written it out in form and structure, and then you've formed things to help yourself and other people? What's the next bit? And for me, I was like, world building. I want to create a world where when you open the book, you're absolutely safe. And you've got brilliant friends and you're going out with them all the time. And you never get a hangover because it's a book. But to have that world building within poetry, exercise with 100%.
Exercise instead of exercise. Thanks, Dylan, for that. Okay, we've come to the end of our time. Actually, I just want to say I don't know about the rest of you folks, but I enjoyed that so much. It was just brilliant, Joelle. Having
Thank you,
you
Daphne.
here in my study. Here you are, and it was really good. Thanks also to folk for questions. Some really good questions. Kara's saying thanks so much for your amazing readings and insights. Kisses and
Oh,
cuddles.
thank you.
And yeah, all the best with the new book and all the other projects that you're doing. Thank you very much
Thank you.
for joining us. Bye.
Bye. Bye-bye.